because I was gonna yell at him too.
Oh.
You always yell at
Yeah,
him.
you always
So
yell.
I don't think
yell,
there's been one time I've seen you two together, you don't yell at him. Or
Sometimes on the
disagree,
phone.
or disagree
Sometimes on the
on
phone we
something.
don't yell, that's true.
You guys always disagree on
big top
something.
off.
He says one thing,
That's
you
true.
say
Fight like you're
Let me
a
go
couple.
for
Maybe there's a story.
No story.
No?
Here's the thing,
You
years
don't
ago.
find Jane attractive?
She does,
She's
just
like my
that.
best friend,
She says she finds me attractive, but she won't say it publicly.
of course. I won't
That's
say
usually,
it
that's what
publicly.
usually women say when they have a gay friend. James?
Yeah.
Are you gay?
Yes, he
There's
is.
nothing wrong with
Yes,
being
he
gay.
Not me, get out of here.
He's asking.
All right.
He is.
Stop.
Who's gay?
Stop.
You.
Not me.
There's
All
nothing
right,
wrong
here in
with it.
10 seconds. Never.
Oh, gosh.
And don't make fun of them, because Sophia has a relative.
All my relatives are gay, so
Are they
there's
really?
nothing wrong with it,
Don't make fun of
yes.
them.
Nothing wrong with them. The
No,
better
there's nothing
people
wrong
in
with
life than,
Thank you.
better than these guys over there.
Behave, please.
Very serious subject.
Yeah, who's this?
Where have you been hiding?
Justin who?
Hiding in a bunker.
Whoa.
I've been sure.
No, you're not.
I'm in your way, right?
Everyone ready? Good afternoon. I'm joined here today by my partners in law enforcement. With me today is the Suffolk County Police Commissioner, Geraldine Hart, the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, Timothy Flaherty, and the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Homeland Security investigations from the Department of Homeland Security, Jerry Hanley. We're here to announce a significant indictment secured by my office against 6 MS-13 gang members. These arrests, like so many we've been conducting lately, literally prevented 2 murders from occurring. The defendants charged in the indictment are Kevin Zuniga, a.k.a. Sharky, age 20, of Brentwood. He was an individual who came to this country illegally. He was an entry without inspection, meaning he was not picked up or detected at the border. And he was arrested in 2017 in Operation Matador, which is an operation conducted by the Department of Homeland Security, which targets gang members throughout the country, and was released on bond by an immigration judge. And of course, now he is subsequently arrested for conspiring to commit murder. Jose J. Portillo, a.k.a. Soldado, age 28, who's residing in Maryland, but was previously a resident of Central Islip. He's also an illegal immigrant, entry without inspection, meaning he was not picked up at the border and has not been detected by authorities since coming to this country illegally until now. Kevin Mejias Sandoval, a.k.a. Abuelo, age 31, also of Maryland. He's an illegal reentry, which means he's been deported. In fact, this individual has been deported twice to El Salvador and has come back illegally. Jerver Chinchilla Perez, a.k.a. Antonio, age 22, of Brentwood, also an illegal immigrant, an entry without inspection. Emerson Hernandez Escobar, a.k.a. Wasson, age 17, of Brentwood. Now, this individual also came here illegally as an entry without inspection, but was picked up again by the Department of Homeland Security pursuant to Operation Matador and was released on bond by an immigration judge. He's now been arrested for conspiring to commit murder. And Rafael Hernandez Elias, a.k.a. Poison, age 17, of Brentwood, also an illegal immigrant who came here entry without inspection. All 6 have been identified by law enforcement as members of the Leeward clique of MS-13. And you may remember there was some press regarding the Leeward clique several weeks ago regarding threats to law enforcement. Mejia Sandoval, in particular, is what is known as a homeboy in the MS-13 gang, a high-ranking member of the gang who receives directives from the gang's leadership in El Salvador and provides instruction to local members, including granting permission for local gang members to commit murder. Our investigation revealed that this was the case in two separate murder conspiracies charged in this indictment. The first conspiracy was a plan by three of the defendants, Zuniga, Portillo, and Mejia Sandoval, to murder a fellow MS-13 gang member who they believed was cooperating with law enforcement. This, of course, goes to show how ruthless this gang is and is part of their MO. They conspire to kill rival gang members, but they also conspire to kill their own when those members allegedly violate the gang's rules, which of course would include cooperating with law enforcement. As outlined in the indictment, the plan to murder the fellow gang member began around August 2018, at which time Mejia Sandoval received permission to kill the individual from gang leaders in El Salvador. From August through January 2019, Zuniga, Portillo, and Mejia Sandoval took several steps in furtherance of their plan to murder their fellow gang member, including conspiring with the other defendants to purchase a loaded firearm that would be used as the murder weapon in this and other killings. After the defendants agreed that it was necessary for their clique to purchase a firearm, they arranged to buy the weapon and even went so far as collecting money to purchase it. And they would have been successful in obtaining that weapon and likely successful in carrying out the murder if it weren't for the hard-working men and women of law enforcement, particularly from the DEA, HSI, and the Suffolk County Police Department. During the same time period from August 2018 through January 2019, the defendants were all involved in a second murder conspiracy, this time to murder a rival gang member in the 18th Street Gang. Our investigation revealed evidence that the defendants identified this Chavala, an enemy of the gang, and they received permission from MS-13 leadership to kill him. Our intelligence shows that their plan was to kill him by shooting him with the firearm they were attempting to purchase, or butchering him with a machete, or lighting him on fire. We have evidence that they took steps to follow the victim, sharing details and descriptions of his appearance and whereabouts, and taking other steps to carry out the murder. The Moros on the street conducted surveillance and took other steps in furtherance of this conspiracy, and they kept their leaders apprised of the progress. These were not empty threats. We've seen MS-13 gang members commit horrific crimes, including murder. And if it weren't for the excellent work done by our law enforcement partners represented here today, we'd probably have 2 additional murders in Suffolk County. Which is why we do not and we cannot take the threat that MS-13 poses lightly. What's more, as I mentioned, is that 2 of the individuals indicted in this indictment were already on our radar as confirmed, active MS-13 gang members, and as a result, HSI picked them up in Operation Matador. And the only reason they were able to commit this murder conspiracy that's charged in this indictment is because they were released by an immigration judge on bond. The 2 individuals that I mentioned, Zuniga and Hernandez Escobar, who were picked up in Operation Matador, were picked up on May 30th, 2017. They were then released on bond on August 1st, 2017, that's Zuniga, and May 4th, 2018 for Hernandez Escobar. By way of the indictment, Zuniga, Portillo, and Mejia Sandoval are each charged with 2 counts of conspiracy in the 2nd degree, a B felony, in connection with the 2 alleged murder conspiracies, and 1 count of conspiracy in the 4th degree, an E felony, in connection with the conspiracy to purchase a loaded firearm. Chinchilla Perez, Hernandez Escobar, and Hernandez Elias are each charged with 1 count of conspiracy in the 2nd degree, in connection with the alleged conspiracy to murder a rival gang member, that's the 18th Street gang member, and 1 count of conspiracy in the 4th degree. If convicted on the top count, the defendants each face a minimum sentence of 8 1/3 to 25 years in prison. Zuniga and Chinchilla Perez were arraigned on the indictment on February 1st and are each being held on $125,000 cash bail or $250,000 bond. Hernandez Escobar and Hernandez Elias were arraigned on the indictment on February 4th and are being held on $200,000 cash bail or $400,000 bond. Patillo was extradited from Maryland on February 14th and arraigned on the indictment on February 15th. He's also being held on $200,000 cash bail or $400,000 bond. Lastly, Mejia Sandoval, who's extradited from Maryland on Friday, was arraigned on the indictment earlier today. Bail was set at $500,000 cash or $1 million bond. This case is being prosecuted by Senior Investigative Counsel Kristen McSloy, as well as Assistant District Attorney Melissa Bliss. They're doing an outstanding job on this case and on many of our investigations and prosecutions relating to violent street gangs here in Suffolk County. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to the Suffolk County Police Commissioner, Geraldine Hart.
Good afternoon. I'd like to begin by thanking our law enforcement partners who share our commitment to keep the streets of Suffolk County safe from gang violence. Together with District Attorney Sini, the DEA, and HSI, we are making a difference, which is resulting in decreased violent crime in Suffolk County. Intelligence gathered several months ago launched this investigation, and through multi-agency resources, 6 people have been apprehended. When agencies work together, we are effective, and in this case, our collaboration prevented 2 murders. These individuals who were taken off the street were active MS-13 gang members who were plotting to kill one of their own and a rival gang member. MS-13 does not care who they hurt. They only know violence, and it is up to us to stop them, and we have. These members who were arrested were trying to restructure and rebuild the leeward clique of MS-13 after it was the focus of multiple arrests in 2017. The clique has been attempting to rebuild and take back their territory, and these arrests have prevented that from happening. The Suffolk County Police Department remains committed to maintaining the successful strategies in place to decrease and prevent gang violence. We will continue to collaborate with all our law enforcement partners to collect and share intelligence about gangs, and we will not relent until we dismantle this violent gang. Thank you.
That, I'll take a few questions.
In the indictment, it says, they had gotten permission from El Salvador earlier on, so what took so long? Like, why didn't they carry it out? Is there any evidence that they couldn't get the gun, or?
I mean, certainly, when you look at these conspiracies, and I'll talk more generally and not necessarily about this one, we've said this before, these aren't necessarily the most sophisticated individuals. And sometimes they see little shiny objects over here and they go off task. And they also know that the pressure's on, especially here in Suffolk County. We're dedicating an enormous amount of resources from the federal government, from the state government, to Suffolk County, to local police departments. And the pressure is on, and they're, of course, conscious of that. And it's important, I think, to highlight in this case that this wasn't a crime that occurred and we made arrests. The crime of conspiracy occurred, but we were actually able to prevent the murders. And this is not the first time this happened. You may remember in December of 2017, when Suffolk County police detectives received information from the community about an attempt by MS-13 gang members to abduct someone in or around the school, Brentwood High School. So the police department took very proactive steps, and sure enough, they were able to actually catch MS-13 gang members in the act of attempting to abduct a young boy. And the evidence in that case clearly shows that they were going to kill him. If I remember correctly, there was duct tape and a tarp and weapons found in the minivan, in the van. And that, of course, is a case that we prosecuted. So the idea, I think, is, and this is a message to the law-abiding citizens of Suffolk County, law-abiding residents of Suffolk County. We are not just waiting for crime to occur and then we're going to prosecute it. We're preventing crime. And that's why you see the dramatic reductions in violent crime and property crime in the hamlets that have been most affected by MS-13, whether it's Brentwood, Central Islip, Huntington Station, and we'll continue to keep that pressure on. They've been under a lot of pressure from the end of 2015 up until now. And what we're not going to do is allow them to come back in any way. We're going to keep that pressure on. We're going to work together, whether it's the Suffolk County Police Department and my office or our federal partners or it's the U.S. Attorney's Office. I now have 10 assistant district attorneys cross-designated or in the process of being cross-designated with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York. What that means is that we can prosecute a case here, and if it makes sense to go federal because perhaps there's a better higher sentencing exposure, or perhaps the rules of evidence are going to favor us more in the federal system, we can just switch over to the federal side. And that means that we can charge something and change course, or it means we can go directly to the feds and have them prosecute it there. Fortunately for the residents of Suffolk County, the relationships among all the law enforcement agencies are optimal. And we're constantly trying to identify new strategies to even make it harder to commit crimes in Suffolk County.
Can you talk about the evidence you have to confirm your claim that they're all MS-13 gang members?
Sure. I mean, the indictment speaks for itself, so I'd refer you to the indictment. And we had a public arraignment earlier today. I wasn't at the arraignment, so I wouldn't want to say anything that wasn't part of the public record. So I'd refer you to what was said at the arraignment. But there's no question that these individuals are confirmed MS-13 gang members. As we've talked about ad nauseum, the Suffolk County Police Department has a gang protocol, and when you fit that matrix, you're confirmed as a gang member, and that intelligence has to be refreshed every 5 years, or else you will be deemed not active, right? So it's based on intelligence that we collect over time, whether it's informants, whether it's information that we get from the individual directly. How many times have we arrested someone who's a suspected MS-13 gang member, and during the arrest debrief, they actually admit to being an MS-13 gang member? And then you have law enforcement out there in the community having to defend, well, how do you know this guy's a gang member? He told us. When you tell me you're a reporter, I believe that you're a reporter. When you tell me you're an MS-13 gang member, guess what? I'm going to confirm you as an MS-13 gang member. And what we're seeing is that we're arresting hundreds, literally hundreds of MS-13 gang members, over 270 individuals, I think it's over 280 now. And that's just the Suffolk County Police Department since September of 2016. And many of these individuals are also being picked up by HSI. And I think people are forgetting the rise in violence that we saw in 15 and 16. And now we don't see that. Now look, you're going to have crime here and there committed by MS-13, but no one can deny the progress that's been made over the last couple years because of the hard work of the men and women of all these law enforcement agencies. And I think a lot of people like to now sit back and question some of the tactics being used. The tactics, we've been very clear about the tactics. Street arrests, keep that pressure on. It helps us gain intel. It also prevents crime. It decreases crime. Significant prosecutions, whether it's from my office, you have the van case that Eileen and I were just discussing. You have that case in Huntington where they threatened a kid to join the gang. You're going to end up dead in the park if you don't join the gang. You have this case, you have other cases, and then on the federal side, you have over 30 federal indictments of either high-ranking gang members or gang members who committed heinous crimes. I wish I could scrub from my brain the homicide scene in Central Islip. And you have our partnership with HSI, where they're targeting active MS-13 gang members for detention and the commencement of removal proceedings. You have millions of dollars being poured into gang prevention and intervention programs so that we can save these kids before MS-13 successfully recruits them. So this is all part of a larger strategy that's working, and we're going to continue to employ it.
Tim, is there any frustration in the fact that immigration judges are setting
What makes you think that?
I'm asking you.
So absolutely, and it's very frustrating. And look, everyone needs to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward, right? So, and not every case is the same, right? Some of these people, some of these individuals are being released straight up, right? So you have the two Burger King defendants. Remember, we had 3 defendants, 2 of them picked up and released, one pursuant to a United States District Court judge's decision, which I think the latest Supreme Court case may call into question his reasoning, actually, in that decision. It's not directly on point, but it's certainly relevant. The 5-4 decision that just came down the other day. And then the other individual who was released by an administrative law judge, just straight up because there wasn't sufficient evidence. And then you have individuals like this that they weren't released without any conditions. They're released on bond, similar to a criminal proceeding, pending their removal proceedings. They're released on bond. But obviously, these are dangerous individuals. And it's not that we're, I respect the process, and we have to make sure that everyone's putting their best foot forward. But law enforcement's doing a tremendous job, and we have to be careful about, sort of, Tuesday night quarterbacking a lot of the successful strategies that have been implemented over the last several years. And they're all part of the puzzle, right? One is not necessarily more important than the other. The millions of dollars in gang prevention and intervention. I mean, we created a program called Change, where we have people going into the Brentwood School District and essentially giving an orientation to unaccompanied alien children. These are the unaccompanied minors. These children have no idea how to live in America, and they don't have, a lot of them don't have the right support systems at home. And so we're basically providing an orientation to these children, and we're connecting them with organizations that can do complete psychosocial workups on them and provide wraparound services where appropriate. And we're touching a lot of kids through this program. That's an extremely important program, right? As we've said, if we don't provide the support, MS-13 will. But making those street arrests are just as important, right? Because that does a lot. Like, even if it's a trespass, you can gain intel from that arrest. And moreover, the fact that that person trespassed on a particular date at a particular location, that may be relevant to a bigger RICO case down the line. How many times has a federal prosecutor, in the midst of a huge RICO case, called a local police officer to testify about what appears to be a simple arrest? Did you arrest this individual for trespass? Yes. When, where, what happened? Because maybe he's with individuals that provide proof of his association. Or maybe he's at a known MS-13 hangout. All of this matters. It's all important. And the puzzle has come together very nicely over the last several years. And that's by design. And look, we're always trying to find ways to even drive crime down further. And we'll continue to do that.
But with all this planning going ahead, admitted MS-13 members being released out on bond, it's got to be somewhat frustrating to know.
It's frustrating, but it also just makes it clear to all of us standing here that we need to continue to work hard, need to continue to work together, and where we can help some of these immigration judges understand the facts better, we should, and we need to be vigilant.
What are the standards those judges should be applying?
Look, I mean, I'm not going to get into the minutiae of immigration law. All right, that's not my job, and I'm not going to do that right here. I have experience because I've prosecuted illegal reentry cases in the Southern District of New York, but I'm not going to get into the minutiae. Obviously, I have no objection to some level of due process after someone's picked up as an identified gang member. And when I mean due process, they clearly have due process in terms of their removal proceeding. But now we're even going a step further and saying they have due process in the change of their status from someone who's released to someone who's now in custody. And so, we have to make sure that everyone's putting the best foot forward to make sure that these judges understand what we're dealing with here, and continue to be vigilant.
I guess what Keith and I are...
Last question.
All right, well, I guess what Keith and I were getting at is you've expressed some frustration with these judges, but I'm not clear as to, what should they be relying on? I mean, you're frustrated with them because of something that happens after they're released. What are they supposed to...
They're supposed to look at the evidence that's presented to them, and I think it's important that it's all taken in context. And I also, it's very important not to politicize this issue, right? The evidence and the intelligence that's being collected on the street that allows us to identify MS-13 gang members are being collected by police officers, being collected by from the individuals who are being identified through admissions, and we have to obviously follow whatever process is set forth. And I think we're living in a little bit of a gray area right now in terms of what type of due process they have pending that removal proceeding. And, you know, it's frustrating when you see, you know, articles like the New York Magazine, the New York Times Magazine, sort of, you know, essentially throw an outstanding police officer under the bus for doing great work. I mean, the misreporting in that article is unbelievable from so many different aspects. They say he was confirmed because the individual doodled in his notebook. Not true. You know, they say it was the school resource officer who was the only person to provide intel that had him confirmed. Not true. You know, the piece in ProPublica regarding an individual who claimed he cooperated and then was thrown to the wolves. Just about every word in that story is not true. So it's just important that law enforcement set the record straight. We're here to protect the residents of Suffolk County. We'll continue to do that. Thank you.